consumer-focused health organisation which has for the last 4 years been challenging the lawfulness of fluoridation in the New Zealand courts. We're now in the Supreme Court, got leave to appeal. I know you're aware of that, so I don't want to say anything further about that, but obviously the committee just needs to be aware of the existence of the litigation. So turning to the bill. Ostensibly, this bill is concerned with where the decision-making for fluoridation lies. However, because the intention of the bill is to bring about mandatory fluoridation, the merits of fluoridation are squarely an issue. At present, more than 2 million people in New Zealand receive fluoridated water, but if mandatory fluoridation is introduced through this bill, then roughly another 2 million people will be exposed to it. So if Parliament is going to compel the rest of the population to ingest fluoridated water, it needs to be satisfied that it is scientifically, ethically, morally and legally justified, and that there are no satisfactory alternatives. And it is New Health's submission that fluoridation fails on all of those criteria, and that there are viable alternatives to fluoridation. Now, the first point I want to make is that fluoridation is not capable of improving the oral health status of New Zealanders. And the simple fact is that the fluoride in fluoridation is simply too weak to have any significant effect on preventing tooth decay. And it is consequently, in my submission, unsurprising that 2 high-quality systematic reviews of fluoridation, this is the York report in 2000 and the Cochrane review in 2015, could not find any high-quality evidence to support the efficacy of fluoridation either in reducing decay in children, reducing decay in adults, or reducing health inequalities.
You're quoting the York report?
I'm quoting both of those, the Cochrane and York. That there is no significant benefits from fluoridation is confirmed by the most recent published data, the New Zealand Dental Statistics from 2015, which show no difference in decay rates between fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities. Now, for more detail about why fluoridation is not effective at reducing dental decay, I refer you to paragraphs 12 to 43 in my submission, which comprehensively set out or explain why fluoridation is not effective at reducing dental decay. The second point I want to make is that fluoridation is unethical. It is the administration of medical treatment without consent in breach of Section 11 of the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. It involves the use of a substance that has been used as a medicine that is delivered to the population in uncontrolled doses, contrary to pharmacological principles. I don't think you'll disagree with the proposition that every individual has the right to determine for themselves what they do or not do with their body. A person has the right to refuse to undergo medical treatment, even though that treatment might be considered beneficial, effective and necessary, and that such a decision may be contrary to that person's interests. It is my submission that mass medication along the lines of fluoridation without consent would only ever be justified to deal with an emergency situation involving something like a highly contagious outbreak of disease where there is no other measure that might be effective. Now, tooth decay is clearly not anywhere near that sort of category of disease. It's non-contagious, it's easily prevented, and it's easily treated. Now, the third point I want to make is that fluoridation cannot be shown to be safe. Fluoride from fluoridated water accumulates over time in your bones, your teeth, your tissues, and it exposes any person consuming it to risks of harm that include dental fluorosis, skeletal fluorosis, endocrine disorders, and IQ reduction. Now, and interestingly, in terms of fluoride accumulation, the World Health Organization says public health authorities should monitor fluoride levels in water supplies and examine the population for signs of excessive fluoride ingestion or exposure. However, to the best of my knowledge, there is no monitoring in New Zealand of signs of excessive fluoride exposure other than monitoring dental fluorosis, because the health authorities refuse to even accept the possibility of harm. And in my submission, they're probably terrified of actually starting to look for fear of what they will find. Now, what I want to do is focus on potential IQ harm, because it's important to emphasise that fluoride is a recognised neurotoxin. The Gluckman-Skeek report implicitly acknowledges that the claimed shift in IQ from fluoride exposure is up to 7 points. Now, we've got the average IQ in New Zealand is 100. So a shift downwards, because that's what we're talking, fluoride being a neurotoxin having a downward effect on IQ, means that there will be more sub-intelligent people, fewer geniuses, and a general dumbing down of the population. Now, the Gluckman report actually acknowledges that. So that risk in my submission is unacceptable, and adopting the precautionary principle justifies the immediate cessation of fluoridation. Now, I have set out in more detail my submissions on IQ, and you can find that at paragraphs 56 to 69 of my submission.
I'm assuming that's related. Is it Paul Collett, his work, Professor Collett?
That it includes reference to the submission to the EPA. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fourthly, it's not in dispute that the fluoridated chemicals, which are hydrofluorosilicic acid, HFA, and sodium silicofluoride, SSF, are highly toxic compounds that contain heavy metal contaminants such as arsenic, mercury and lead, all of which are added to the water supply together with the fluoride. Now, there has been no safety testing of these products. Now, doesn't it seem incongruous to you that Parliament is proposing that a public health authority such as the DHB be empowered to put heavy metal contaminated industrial waste dressed up as a medicine into the public drinking water supply for the claimed purpose that it protects our teeth? It's my submission that if fluoridation was being considered for the first time today, who would ever think that that was a good idea? And in that vein, which parallel universe would it be considered acceptable that a public health authority could put a medicine into the drinking water without even being required to consult with the affected population, which is what this bill proposes? I mean, that is draconian and undemocratic. And it's also, and it's not overstating this to say that's exactly the type of thing that the Nuremberg trials were supposed to stop. Now, it's my submission that there are viable and alternative programs to fluoridation, and the one I want to discuss is a toothbrushing and education program similar to the Child Smile program in Scotland. I deal with that in paragraphs 70 to 77 of my submission. And I say, and I'll just quickly go through that.
Just so you know, you've just got under 3 minutes. I know you're
3
conscious
minutes,
of time,
yeah.
so I thought I'd give you
All
a
right.
heads up if that helps you just to
Under 3. Well, what I want to say, so we've got a cost effective, it's this Child Smile. No one is disputing tooth decay is significant, but what is disputed is that fluoridation is the appropriate way of addressing it. There is in Scotland they have a Child Smile program, which is a toothbrushing education program, and my client has, at its own expense, at a great expense, obtained a cost-benefit analysis of such a program being used in New Zealand. And I have included that in my submission. And the TDV economic report found that the total cost to operate such a program in New Zealand would be approximately $12 million, and it would deliver annual benefits of between $51 and $61 million. I mean, that's a tiny cost, $12 million, and it's going to deliver between $51 and $61 million worth of benefits annually. I mean, my submission is that ditching fluoridation and implementing a toothbrushing and education program would be seen to be an enlightened initiative by a sensible government. I have some final comments.
That's right.
No doubt you are
Feel
thinking...
free and relax to make that. I'm not going to cut you off too short. So you're fine.
Well, that's why I was hurrying. Okay, no doubt you're thinking, why should we listen to New Health when we've got the health establishment telling us a completely different story? And there are two reasons. First, New Health has serious credentials in this area. It has spent approximately $700,000 litigating the issues. And in that process, it has obtained a substantial amount of high quality expert advice, including spending $130,000 on the TDV report during the cost benefit analysis at its own expense to justify that there are viable alternatives to fluoridation. New Health is extremely well informed. And it's insulting for people to be suggesting that people who oppose fluoridation are misinformed. Secondly, when it comes to fluoridation, the health establishment, and by that I mean the Ministry of Health, the World Health Organisation, the CDC, Sir Peter Gluckman, the Royal Society, the Dental Association, the Medical Association, DHBs, etc. The health establishment is simply following policy. They are, with respect, and I can say this because I've dealt with this, in a lot of fora, they are closed-minded. Fluoridation has been government policy for 60 years, and it is something of a sacred cow. The health establishment is not allowed to tell you anything against this policy. They're not allowed to have an open mind. Fluoridation is a classic example of the adage, when policy is king, science is a slave. And one of New Health's pleas to this committee is to bear in mind that it's actually a sign of intelligence to change your mind. Only a fool never changes their mind. But the problem is that when policy is king, the ruler is a fool. There is a compelling case against fluoridation. The evidence is right there in front of you. I have provided, a 25-page submission, a 50-page TDB analysis, plus we've got the report to the on IQ with all of the papers referenced. All of the evidence there is in front of you. You just need to be discerning and you need to be an independent thinker. Do not pass this bill.
Thank you very much. We had crossed over time, but I had the sense we were coming to the end. A quick question is, and I know you're representing your client, is New Health prepared to change its mind?
Is New Health prepared to change its mind? Well, the evidence would be open to changing its mind if the evidence demonstrated effectiveness, which it doesn't. But the key reason my client is opposed to fluoridation, apart from the lack of efficacy and risks of harm, is that it's a fundamental breach of individual freedom of choice.
Oh, look, thank you for articulating that. It was just your last comments in representation that the establishment is closed-minded and the sign of intelligence is to be open to change. It was just the philosopher in me was
yes, and I say yes, yes, but there has been nothing presented to it to make it change its mind. And the problem is that the quality of the evidence in this area is so poor, but it's been held out to be high quality and justifying the safe and efficacious claims. But
I appreciate your time. So I think we went a few minutes over, but I thought it was important that we do it. So thank you for your representation on behalf of New Health. Do we have